Is it just us right now?
It is just us.
Hi,
Whoa.
Tamara. Yeah, Marvin said he's not going to be able to make it either.
Oh, okay.
And for some reason, oh, there it comes. Okay, it is not Christina in the attendees. Okay. All right, well, we'll have to wait till we meet quorum. So right now
Okay.
we have not.
Hi, Tamara. How you doing? I saw you reached out to Ben. Good job.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to his response. I'm kind of loopy today. My head is I have a massive headache. I haven't had a headache like this in a long time. But
Oh, is
yes,
it
I
a
do
migraine?
actually get migraines. It's just I think it's my head is not used to having so much stuff packed inside of it. And it's kind of overflowing and yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's as nearly as bad as a migraine. It was just more like I just want to close my eyes and not see or talk or have sound. So maybe it is a migraine. I don't know.
That sounds kind of, I mean,
Yeah,
be quiet, but it sounds like a little bit of a migraine.
sounds like
Yeah,
a
maybe I'll
migraine.
Sounds
yeah,
like it.
probably. So I'm probably gonna keep my eyes closed and my camera off, but I will chime in when I can. And but also thank you, Christina, for rallying. You're a rock star. I can't believe what you're doing. You're amazing.
It's fun being in here. I'm hating it. If you could give me 10 minutes to finish my breathing treatment, I'm all fine after that.
Well,
Heck yeah. Oh,
right now we don't have quorum yet, Christina, so
Oh,
we need
okay.
we need one more person.
What is our quorum number again right now?
6.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ruby, how are you? Long time no see.
I know. How are you? I'm doing good.
Oh yeah, doing good. We did I'll give an update a little bit, but we finished our point in time count.
Yay!
Data collection at least. There's a lot more to go.
Congratulations. That's awesome. It was fun this year. I was excited to be involved.
Yeah, where were you at?
Oh, in South or not South Park, but Georgetown and over in Burien.
Okay.
Did they not have one in West Seattle?
They did, but I was not scheduled at that location.
Marvin is not going to be able to join. I don't know if I let the group know already, but he had a other obligation today.
And Shauna is going to attend, just going to be late.
My understanding, so we need one more person, right?
Correct. So Sherry, Ben, or Shauna. There it's been.
I'm very sorry I'm late.
Daniel, you have quorum.
Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Great. Just 1 second, folks. I mean, I will hand it over to the co-chairs if you want to lead us into intros.
Sure. Christina, would you like me to lead that?
Yeah, just till I'm done with my breathing treatment.
Okay. You got it.
Tamara, are you okay with doing that? I don't know what kind of vote needs to happen or whatever. I'm happy to take over if you guys need, because I know you're both in a situation.
If that's an option, I mean, I certainly would. I wouldn't say no.
I just need to finish my breathing treatment, that's all.
Yeah.
You want me to do roll call, Tamara?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start with that. Yeah.
Okay. Tamara Bauman.
I am here.
Sherry Tillman. I don't see Sherry quite yet. Ruby Romero Tuesday.
Close. Ruby is here. I'm here.
And we know Marvin is going to be absent, and Christina Sawicki is here. Ben?
Recording in progress.
I'm here.
And Victoria
Here.
and Mustafa.
Here.
And it does not look like Shauna has arrived quite yet. So you do have 6 members present and you have met quorum.
Excellent. Welcome everyone. Are we live? We're live now. Welcome everyone to the February System Performance Committee meeting. My name is Tamara Bauman. I am kind of stepping in as a intro for the moment. And we just did roll call. Is there anyone who would like to provide a land acknowledgement at this time? I didn't have one prepared, otherwise I would be happy to.
If we can put it on the screen, I'd be happy to read it.
Oh, yeah.
I believe is it in the chat? Maybe? Okay. If I could have it on the screen.
Yeah, does anyone have that pulled up by any chance? I do have the theory of change if we want to start with that.
Let's start with that. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So the theory of change reads as if we create a homelessness response system that centers the voices of people with lived experience of homelessness, then we can focus on responding to needs and eliminating inequities to end homelessness for all. And are there any other intros that any other folks that want to say anything or introduce themselves before we try to locate the land, or while we try to locate the land acknowledgement? Um, if not, does anybody is anybody able to post that in the chat? Oh, there we go. There we go. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. The land acknowledgement is the King County Continuum of Care Board acknowledges that we work on the unceded traditional lands of the Coast Salish peoples, especially the First Peoples of Seattle, the Duwamish, the original stewards of the land, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. This acknowledgement only becomes meaningful when combined with accountable relationships and informed action, and is the first step in honoring the land that we today sit on and their people. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you so much, Ruby. I think we are now at public comment. Are there any hands in the audience or anyone who would like to provide public comment at this time? And I do see one hand. Dorsal.
Dorsal, you should be able to speak.
Awesome. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll be quick because I think I only have 2 minutes. Hello everyone. My name is Dorsal Plants. I use he, his pronouns. I am a resident of the city of Renton, McKean County. I have lived experience both as homelessness and a survivor of DV, and have about 17 years of service provider experience in the Seattle King County area. I want to start by saying a huge thank you to the co-chairs and to Daniel for their grace and patience as they worked with me to find proper channel for the letter. The letter, basically the too long didn't read component of it was I initially was reaching out to the System Performance Committee and the data team at KCRHA to just better understand how our metric numbers reflected in relation to some of the challenges our region had identified in calendar year 2024 and 2025 around evictions in the affordable housing provider community, and turnover, and challenges to the vacancy rate. And really just wanted to encourage and request kind of a deeper dive beyond just the HUD required metrics, but which are important, but also just ways and opportunities to deeper dive into the data. I did receive a response to my initial letter from Daniel that suggested that some of this data actually may already exist and is currently being used by KCRHA. And I'm just encouraging that we find a way to further share and understand the data. One example that I would give is a data point that's known as the vacancy rate. I understand that HUD requires us to track the occupancy rate, and in a complete apples to apples comparison, the vacancy rate is pretty much related to the occupancy rate. But what other COCs have been finding is that there are ways to better look at the vacancy rate. For example, if you look at the occupancy rate of a building and it says that 90% of the units are occupied, that looks like a good and successful program. And I'm not saying it's not a successful program, but in that 5 to 10% vacancy rate, there could be additional trends that we could learn to address if we're able to kind of look at that information in relation to others. For example, 90% of your units are occupied, but it's the same 5 ADA compliant units that are not occupied. And the reason I was curious about the vacancy rate in particular is in 2025, multiple public funders in our region, the State Department of Commerce, King County, the City of Seattle, and others were realizing that they needed to include vacancy rates as part of their outcome metrics because they learned, and there's a citation in the initial letter that I believe is in the agenda packet that calls this out, but it was discovered that while a building could appear completely occupied, that sometimes that number may not speak to potential issues such as there being an overabundance of studio apartments or a lack of apartments that can accommodate people who need accessibility features. And so I do want to say just very firmly that I'm not suggesting that there's anything wrong or invalid or that these are even purposeful disconnects. It's just as other COCs and other public funders have started to look deeper into numbers that aren't contract required, but speak more to the mission. I was curious to learn more about what the SPC and the Regional Homeless Authority can be doing in partnership with the COC and service providers to just have a deeper picture of what's going on in our projects. And maybe even speak to the fact that, you know, what is different about the COC HUD funded projects that we did not have the vacancy rate concerns that were present in projects being operated by the same provider that we're seeing in the Commerce and King County contracts. And so thank you for your time and your patience. I'm happy to answer questions. The letter, I think, does a little bit better job of explaining things, and it includes some citations and a couple of other data points that I'm not saying we're wrong. I'm just curious to do a deeper dive or to learn more about how SPC and the Regional Homeless Authority is doing a deeper dive into those numbers. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that comment, Dorsal. Does anyone want to follow that up? Is there another comment, or do people want to open that up for discussion now? I know that is on the agenda later on, but does anybody have any feedback now?
And Tamara,
Right.
there are no other public comments. Nobody else is in the attendees.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you for that. And I guess we will proceed with the next item on the agenda, which is board updates. And Christina, are you available for that? If not, do we want to have well, since we have the COC co-chair of here, do one of them want to provide an update on the COC board updates?
Yeah, sure, Tamara. Thanks. This is Ruby Romero, the co-chair of the Continuum of Care Board. And thanks for having this on the agenda today. Basically, the only updates that we have are that the NOFO, after many rescinded and back and forth and court cases and whatnot, we finally have submitted what was an email that stated that we were interested in still having our renewals go through. My understanding is that was the only thing we needed to do to confirm that we would like our renewal dollars for this next contracted year that we did for the NOFO in 2024. And so hopefully we will start to see those grant contracts coming in. And then other than that, the committee and work groups of like surrounding the charter should be starting back up soon. And hopefully as well as the cross-cutting policy work group. Those are the only updates I have right now that I can think of. There might be a few more, but I would just encourage anyone to go watch our most recent meeting.
And we're looking at revamping the point in time committee for 2026, for 2027. And so a bunch of us will be working on that and debriefing and having a discussion on how that went. If you all want to make sure you submit any concerns, challenges, as well as anything you saw well to the people in charge of the point in time count, so we can keep track of all that.
And I just remembered we also got some new board members, and we're going to be welcoming them at our next meeting. So I'm really excited to be working with them and to see the movement and growth that we can do as a board.
Correct.
Ruby, hi, this is Daniel. I just had a question for you on those updates, and feel free to decline to share if it's not finalized yet. But did you all make a final decision and make an announcement on who got those board seats yet?
Yes,
Catherine?
I'm sorry. We did get a notification out to our membership that we did select the board seats, and that has been, I don't know if the list has been made public per se, but it will be, they will be present at our next meeting. And there was 5 seats that were filled.
Oh, great. Okay, I happy to wait. Just wasn't sure if that was out in the public yet. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Could I just make one slight correction? It's 4 seats that were filled.
Yes, that is what I meant to say. Thank you, Catherine, for that correction. I'm really good at math.
You
It's
are.
okay.
You are.
Are we able to say who they are, Catherine, or no?
Sure, of course. It's been sent
Okay.
out to the membership. So it's Valerie Sasson from Kenmore, Rocco DeVito from Burien, and Sheriff John and Jen Carl for the business seat. So Sheriff John is for the law enforcement seat.
And Miss Jen is, I'm never going to get it right, Seattle Downtown Association?
Chambers.
Chambers,
Yeah.
Chambers, Seattle
Yep.
Chambers. Okay. Great.
Well,
Thank
we're excited.
you.
Yes.
We
very
are.
excited.
And next we are done with the board updates. I'd like to move into Dorsal reading the letter and that he submitted to us and going ahead and having a discussion around that. Dorsal, if you'll take it off.
Sorry, I jumped the gun and misunderstood and did during public comment. But I'm happy to read the full letter if that's helpful. 1 second. Can you all, I just want to confirm you all can hear me because
Yes, we can.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
loud
Yes,
and clear, Dorsal.
Yeah.
And appreciate you reading the letter.
And also Sherry is now here, just for the record.
I would also ask whether or not we actually need to spend time having the letter read. We had a week to review it, so
Okay.
I would encourage us to just jump into discussion unless anyone wants time to review.
That's fine. I want to make sure. What do you think, Dorsal? Because I know it's supposed to be read into public comment before by our thing, but what do you, Dorsal and Daniel, think? Dorsal.
I'm good with that. And correction, I learned last week, it does not necessarily have to be read into record as long as it's attached to the agenda. And it was attached to the agenda today.
Awesome. Shall we go ahead and go into discussion, please? Would you like to go ahead and start and explain, Dorsal?
Yeah. So I guess part of the background I would provide just very quickly as a service provider, these questions came up a lot for me, specifically with the return to homelessness rate that was required as part of the contract. At the time KCRHA took over contract monitoring, my program noticed that our return to homelessness rate was staying at 0 despite being able to confirm and document that we had unfortunately failed a few of our participants and they had returned to homelessness. And it led me down just this rabbit hole of just how much our data is or isn't necessarily telling us. With the return to homelessness rate, what I discovered is the reason why the 4 households that returned to homelessness weren't counted is because of the way that the return to rate homelessness is dependent on HMIS talking to each other across different sites. A lot of this kind of came up again at the October updates because the COC has really, really good, successful numbers. And I want to be very clear, especially verbally, I'm not suggesting that those numbers are inaccurate. It's just, as my letter documents, public funders working with the same agency and in some cases in some of the same buildings were refining or making changes to their contract around things like vacancy rate to ensure that units were being turned over and effectively moved to serve the population. And it just led to a question of what data do we as this team, the regional homelessness team, What data do we have that maybe we're not necessarily like putting out in public meetings or, you know, giving to our contract monitors? For example, Daniel Sheridan, his response that while the return to homelessness rate that I often see is the one that's the HUD requirement, which I believe is 6 months. KCRHA actually does a really good job, it sounds like, internally of even going as far as 24 months with the return to homelessness rate. But I have never seen the 24-month number in a presentation. And so happy to answer questions or kind of dive in further. But really, that the intent of the letter was just, you know, with the eviction rate concerns, with vacancy rate concerns that other public funders are having, are we missing something, or is there something about our system that works that we could share with other public funders? Yeah.
I'll go ahead and jump in with a couple of comments. So, hi Dorsal, I don't know if we've met. I'm Victoria Ewing Kwan. I'm from King County Department of Community and Human Services. So a couple of things I want to point out. A lot of those vacancy rate problems were happening at 60% AMI units within the affordable housing stock. And the challenge that's going on there is that the market is supplying a sufficient number of units at that income range to meet the demand. And that's why the subsidized units, there's not as high of a demand on them. We don't see that same problem when we're looking at PSH, which is at the 0 to 30% AMI bracket. That's where there's really a deep need for additional units. And that's why we aren't really seeing vacancy within those units. The other thing I'll add is that knowing that King County monitors and manages a lot of the PSH portfolio, one thing that our contract managers are starting to do is look at eviction rates within PSH properties. So King County DCHS has access to evictions data throughout King County. It's not really real time, but it's better than nothing. And one thing that we are now providing our contract managers is information about the number of filings at these buildings. And this isn't necessarily saying that evictions are happening. We don't know always if it's the same household receiving multiple filings or multiple households, but it's additional information for the contract managers to sit and work with their providers to do technical assistance, to learn a little bit more about what's happening on the ground, so that if we are seeing concerning trends in the number and reasons for evictions, we can address it.
All of that is great. I think part of what I'm hoping or kind of curious about is just that's not any information that we've really heard talked a lot about. And I hear you about the 60% AMI range, although it's my understanding that there have been some challenges with the vacancy rate at 0 to 30, particularly around some of the supportive services requirements or some of the requirements to access programs. I have some lived experience as a coordinated entry assessor and having to work with the ombudsman kind of around mismatch. And yeah, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I think that's part of, as I understand it, understanding the ecosystem of the homelessness and housing response, that the fact that we have a stall, you know, the majority of people I was serving when I was working at the Fusion Family Center, they were 50 to 80% AMI. And so I understand that the COC funding doesn't always touch into that realm, but better understanding the whole housing ecosystem and understanding where that stall is and why that stall is taking place, I think is part of, again, like not suggesting that there's anything wrong, but like I'm curious how, for like when you're looking into evictions, for example, and I'm blanking on the term of course now, but we discovered that there were some PSH providers that were actually paying people to self-evict, and those people were returning to homelessness. And so like even understanding a better picture of like what does it mean to track evictions versus like those friendly agreed upon evictions. Yeah. Like, would it be possible to start seeing the return to homelessness rate at the 6 month, the 12 month, and the 24 month mark? Is there a reason why we only show like the HUD required metrics when we do kind of these presentations?
Yeah, Doris, this is Daniel. I'll answer that question. And I think just maybe one correction there. You might have it flipped. The returns rate for the system performance measures report, the HUD report for it, it actually does do the breakout for the up to the 2 year mark. So I'm wondering if you were thinking about another report, and I'm mismatching here, but the system performance measures report does report out to 24 months. And I believe we've given that presentation, we gave it last year, and I can dig that up for you and you can see those numbers for 2025.
Yeah, that would be great because I think the October presentation, when I asked, I was told they were the 6 month numbers.
I think those were for, yeah, okay, I'm connecting dots there. That would have been for our KCRHA analysis that we did for the COC programs. I believe Claire, our product manager, put that dashboard together and walked you all through with Kelsey.
Yes.
So I think that's the one you're referencing. The HUD one does go out to 2 years, and yeah, absolutely can get that for you. I can actually put it in the meeting notes here so you can see the results of that.
Awesome.
Attached to today's meeting minutes. And one thing I do, this is technical, and I know the broader public might not, if they're listening in on this, might not be able to track all this. There is literature out there to learn more. Really, some of the counterintuitive things about the returns rate, at least for HUD's report, we often think of returning from one program to another. So it's my program, my shelter, let's say someone exits to permanent housing within 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, they return back. Um, that that is actually not how the system performance measures report works. It's much more complicated than that. And this is HUD's prescription on how they measure that. They look back a year and then they scan forward from there, and they look at an exit to permanent housing, and then they look to see if that individual showed back up in the system. So they may have, one program I usually pointed out, Dorsal, may have had a positive exit, but then they entered in a TH program and then returned. So it may be a little confusing to measure it at that program lens, because what it's really trying to do is to look at the system level, which is where is that return in the system within a 2 year band. And it can be any program within, those HUD project type interventions, ES, TH, rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing. And then those calculations get even more nuanced. We collect data move-in. So someone that gets rental assistance, they may not get the keys for that unit until, second month, third month. And that is different than them enrolling in a program, getting case management, and then having to look for a unit, get the deposit. And so every little data point that goes into the calculation is really important. And that's where the data management team, that's my team, that includes the BitFocus admin team, where we do the trainings, we let case managers know all these little critical data points that to them, I can understand maybe secondary, they want to work with the client. They're doing case management work. Data may be second to the task at hand, the emergency housing needs at hand. But we do a lot of work throughout the year to make sure we get all of those little data pieces that go into the calculation. So I guess 2 points there, just to recap. One, it's counterintuitive if we think about one program in isolation in returns. What we look at with the HUD report, or what they have outlined there, is returns at a system level, including multiple programs that a person might be in a 24-month period. And then we work throughout the year. We have dashboards for providers, and we do trainings for our HMIS leads, and we have material on the website to help inform what are the critical data points for each one of these HUD reports. I'll stop there. I know Lauren is on the call from our BitFocus team. I don't know if you want to add anything, Lauren. You're kind of in the rolling around in the dirt on that a lot more than I am, or if there's any other questions or comments on that. But I did want to make that correction. And if there's no other comment, I did want to also, Dorso, I think it's really interesting looking at returns, statewide or COC, multiple COCs in the region, however you would define that. That is a curiosity, what is that movement? And right now, I think the entity best positioned to do that kind of analysis would be the Department of Commerce, since they are the state HMIS lead. We feed our data into their analysis. So do all other HMISs in the state. If you start to go more broadly, I think state to state data sharing agreements, that gets much more complicated. But at the state level, I think really the Department of Commerce would be the best positioned entity, or HMIS lead, if you will, to do that. And I would bring that back to the COC board to see like what connections you're making there at that level, and happy to support that in terms of like contacts and things like that, if that is something that you truly are interested in understanding, where people are going between COCs. I know that question's been asked throughout the years. As far as I'm aware, that hasn't happened, at least at KCRHA, since I've been on, and I haven't seen anything historical like that. Victoria, your hand's raised, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and second that I think that the Department of Commerce is well positioned for a statewide analysis of returns to homelessness. And I could also see something like them in coordination with maybe the state of Oregon to look at sort of a regional approach. I do want to caution against your recommendation that we advocate to HUD for a look at a nationwide version of this, because what I'd be afraid of is feeding all of our HMIS data to the federal government, given the current political situation. I don't want to see that happen. So that is something that I would take sort of would prefer that we look at a much narrower scope in terms of if we were to share out HMIS information with other government entities.
Thank you, Daniel, for this. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna thank too. Just thanks.
Thank you, Daniel, for the advice. And I don't want to say it wrong. It's Victoria, right?
Yeah, Victoria.
In my dream world, I would love, like, especially if it's in my own career as a case manager, how many people we paid to move out of state. But yes, I think that's wise advice around the federal level. But I think it'd be curious, like a statewide would be amazing. I think even just Puget Sound regionally, with how many people I know, like at Fusion, we were in Federal Way. Tacoma was not Pierce County. It was just the next closest place to live. And so, yeah, thank you for that. I'll be taking that advice and kind of following up on it.
If I may, Dorsal, I appreciate the questions, and I think there's wisdom in continuing to push forward and trying to understand this. And HUD doesn't necessarily lead in data analysis. They tend to play it safe and do what works, and they end up being a little bit in the lag in terms of innovation for analysis. So I do appreciate the question, and I think we are positioned to be ones to try to push things forward with caution, like Victoria said. But bringing it back to kind of our local context here. First of all, how do we support you on next steps? We have a committee here, a subcommittee. Is there is there an appetite for us to, have a member here that would take this on, work with you, continue to answer these questions until you feel like you've gotten to a place of satisfaction with them, or a strategy that you can take back to the COC board? What can we do to serve you on this subcommittee?
Thank you for that. I think one sharing the data report you mentioned would be helpful, and then I'm a bit of a processor, so I need to like kind of process some of the conversation and information. But yeah, I'd be happy. I think I'll have probably some potential follow-up questions in regards to like and it seems like this committee is really well placed. Like it would be, I think, interesting to talk more about or learn a little bit more about kind of the interplay that was being talked about around like the 60% AMI and the stoppage there, but it not impacting the 0 to 30% AMI. But what does that look like when it comes to the continuum as a whole? So yeah, if there's any interest in this board in vacancy rate or kind of what that looks like Daniel, do we have the vacancy rate for the COC funded units or like yeah?
Yeah, actually, this is really good. I don't often get to sing the praises of my coworkers and all their great work, but Janelle um and the Joel and the Bit Focus team in 2024 really really push forward with a sort of the holy grail of enrollments and bed inventory. And right now we aside from a few shelters that we're working to get onboarded for reasons they just kind of have been a little bit behind. We're trying to work with providers on this one. But for our COC funded TH, PSH, RRH programs, when someone does an enrollment in the HMIS, we actually have an automatic linkage going to those beds and units when they enter the program. So real time, I think, is kind of a sticky term because it's not well defined always, or it's kind of a loosely defined one. But when we take a snapshot on any given day, we do know how many folks are enrolled in each one of the beds in a program, at a site, in a district, in a region, in King County. And that includes all of our project types. Again, there are some we're still working with on the emergency shelter side. That's an ongoing project that will likely be finished here in the first or second quarter. But we've already got shelters participating, so that's the good news. Does that change anything for you, knowing that we can get that vacancy rate, not for housing, not for market rate housing, but for the portfolio that we have, certainly.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead.
I was going to say one other thing later on in the agenda. I actually have a dashboard I'm going to walk folks through. I'm going to show you where you can see not that data in particular, but I'm definitely taking notes. I do have other data points there where we can all start having some shared consciousness on data and trends. So I think if you can stay for that, that would be great.
I will unfortunately
Dorothy.
I have a work but I will watch the recording because yes, that yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to kind of ask the questions and then dive a little bit further with you all into them. And yeah.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is a break at 3:00, but we can, do you have time right now just to go ahead into the federal report, Daniel?
Yeah, I would love to actually go into the federal report because I think we might have some good discussion here, and
Okay.
I can give you some overview. So I'm gonna just talk a little bit about federal reporting in general, but I do want to lead in with the point in time count, which we just completed the data collection for that. And I couldn't, I'd be remiss if I didn't say a few thank yous, which one, for the PIT work group. Thank you. This was our first time having a point in time count work group at KCRHA to get input for how we're doing and executing the respondent driven methodology, the way that we count here, those who are unsheltered. I also want to thank the KCRHA staff and the research and data team, really staffing 27 hubs that we had in the entirety of the 2 weeks that we did the data collection. I'll talk about those details here in a second. It's like running 27 Starbucks with a morning and afternoon schedule. And huge thank you to Ewan and Kathia on our team who really did all that scheduling and volunteer management. Big lift. And then I want to thank the BitFocus team for in parallel working on our other federal reports, like the housing inventory count, which is the companion report to the PIT. So the point in time count is how many folks, the HIC is how many beds do we have. Also a very big lift. Many people don't realize how braided those two reports are, especially maybe listeners who might be listening to the System Performance Committee and not having a lot of background. So a few thank yous on that. The point in time count overview for the unsheltered count. Quick recap on the methodology. It's respondent driven sampling. So what we do is we have coupons that we give to a person experiencing unsheltered homelessness. They come to the hub site, they do a survey, we give them 3 more coupons, and anyone that they may know who's unsheltered or even sheltered, they can, we prefer that they give it to unsheltered individuals. There's a whole data cleanup process to that. So we don't commingle that data, but we do want to get others who are unsheltered. So we give those 3 coupons. Anyone that they hand that to would come back, and those 3 would then get 9 coupons. 9 coupons could turn potentially into 27. And what we're doing is we're measuring the amount of people that each person knows in that network chain. And then that is used as a factor for an estimation for our unsheltered count, which takes into consideration our actual sheltered count as well. So there's a lot of math involved. I won't show the fancy formula. Our partners at UW, also a thank you to them. They helped. This is Dr. Zach Almquist and Dr. Eson. They both again supported us this year as well as in 2022 and 24. They really put together that methodology so that we could execute that. Now, how did it start? The 2-week period started on January 26th. And from there, we had hub sites open in all of the regions here in King County, including Vashon Island, South King, Southeast King, East King, North King, and the metropolitan area. I didn't bring maps or anything like that to show you all, but we had, like I said, 27 hub sites throughout the duration of the data collection period. And what I wanted to share a little bit about my experience, I was down in the rural areas, and we had a mobile data collection hub, which was a new addition this year. We also had the family phone line again this year. So for families that may struggle with going from point A to point B, going to the survey hubs, we had that call-in line, and we had case managers who were able to validate that they were experiencing unsheltered homelessness. So again, we had the family phone line with the addition of the data collection van. So with each iteration of this, we're trying to make improvements. What I saw in the rural areas was really heartbreaking, and but also it was really good to take the oral histories of folks living out in rural King County. I think there's lessons to be learned there, and we're going to be doing a lot of that. Retrospective is kind of a fancy word for a reflection on it as a team. And what you're going to see, a couple things I want to say at once, but let me just slow down there. In the rural areas, I just wanted to share, I did see anecdotally a lot of vehicle residency. And so I think some lessons learned there is maybe, we handed out bus tickets for folks to get to and from hub sites. We gained insights, and some of the insights, that I have written out is with folks living in vehicles, we may need to consider how we're getting them to and from hub sites with gas vouchers and things like that, because they don't really want to leave their cars behind. That's really all they have for a lot of the folks that I surveyed. I do want to also mention that I did have reports of um, um, two different churches who had seen their Latino, Chicano parishioners not being as visible. And so I think we're trying to understand some of the context around this year's point in time count, and if any of the immigration enforcement had a hand in some of that. So there's some variables that I think are interesting this year, that with the family phone line, being rural, the federal administration's initiatives with Border Patrol and immigration enforcement. Some of these things are all going to be pieces of context that we're going to have to integrate in our final report. And I also want to just point out that the multitude, the 150 volunteers that helped, these are people from all walks of life. We had some repeat volunteers. That was amazing. But that volunteer management also, there were lots of successes. We had people who were consistent and showed up and jumped in and learned how to do surveys on iPads. I know if Ruby is still on the call, I know Ruby, you were volunteering. That's sort of, I just kind of want to give the landscape of the data collection portion of it. So now we're moving on to the analysis. So we're finishing up our sheltered count. This includes emergency shelters, transitional housing, and safe havens. And that's actually split into two branches. We have those that enter into HMIS. So that's a report that we run, and we're going to get that information on total counts. This includes households with and without children, households with children, and households with only children. And then we have some subpopulations in there. We'll be reporting on veterans like we normally do, youth and young adults, and unaccompanied minors. These are all subpopulations in there. These are all the standard tables that we will be reporting out on in this group. As always, we'll get that once we finish those report. The other one is the non-HMIS participating shelters. We have a list of those that we keep, and that's a list of about 20 plus shelters. We're in contact with those. I've worked with my contacts at the Homeless Coalition and a few other stakeholders to make sure that any shelters that might be operating outside of our funded system, outside of HMIS, that I have that, and I'm currently in the process of contacting and getting their aggregate information on who they served on the night of the count on the 26th. So, just giving an update on that point in time count piece, that we're still in the active execution of it because we're still doing the sheltered piece, but the unsheltered data collection has been completed. I'll stop there for questions. If there's anyone else that volunteered that I recognize, please speak up if you want to give some of your thoughts on that. Or anyone else? Sean, I see your hand raised. I'm not hearing you.
Yeah, hi. One thing that stood out in your report to me right now is you talking about listening to stories and oral histories. And I think that, that's so important for us to make sure everybody's included, because data is so white dominant culture centered. So I want to thank you for making a point of doing that.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Yeah, again, this is totally anecdotal, but I was down in North Bend, small example, met a couple along the riverbank there, in the Snoqualmie Valley, and they were underdressed for the weather. They'd been living by the riverbank since the gentleman that was there. They've been living there since he lost his job as a mechanic. And they struggled to pay the rent in that area, which they shared with me it was much cheaper a few years ago. And they struggle with gas, and he struggles with the without identifying anyone, he had a history of his own that he felt like he had made amends for, but still sort of haunted him and kept held him back from getting work down there. And I think what my takeaway is that particular couple, they were from that community, they wanted to stay in that community, and they were struggling to rebuild down in that North Bend, Snoqualmie area. And I think they got a gift card. They both got a gift card for their survey, so that was $25. I think that helped them for a short time. But walking away, looking at services in that area and talking to locals, and I wasn't there to be a service provider, and I did try to provide as much as possible. But knowing the distances that they have to travel for things really did hit home for me, because the resource list that I have was a lot more centrally located in Seattle, although there were some shelters in East King. But yeah, just sharing a little bit about kind of my observations, and I did thank them for their stories, because they weren't just telling me the questions I needed to answer. They were sharing, how they got there and how that happened to them. I will say one question that was an addition to this year's point in time count was about pets. And I brought a 20-pound bag of dog food that I broke into about 50 different bags, and I used that all up in my region that I was doing the data collection.
Yeah, that's a good point. Knowing I'm also with Healthcare for the Homeless, we don't have any free veterinary outreach in that area at all. They don't go to that deep of past Bellevue. So yeah, it is definitely a huge need, we know, as in pets with their owners, or even service emotional support animals. Okay, so Daniel, the next thing is the housing inventory count. More on that.
I'm so sorry. This is Tamara. I just wanted to pop in real quick and just thank you, Daniel, for modeling like oral storytelling in action. That's the kind of that's the beauty of, and the informal nature of like Talanoa was, where we like share our unique insights and interpret it in a way that's it for the collective good, for collective care. And I just really appreciate your leadership on that, and for like also mentioning the connection with our animals and our pets, and the connection between human and land and animal and like nature. Just the full circle natural beauty of the world, and how we can use that for like social change is so great. And I don't know why I just wanted to pipe in with that, but that was such a beautiful example. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. And also it's the same as data. So I just want to, my caveat there, that's my just personal experience as the person running the 3 hubs down there. I know we have a hard stop at storytelling is data. Thank you. Yeah. I know we have our 3 o'clock break. I recommend let's stick with that. And when we come back, I can go into the housing inventory count and share where we're at with that.
Okay.
And Lauren, knowing you're here, don't want to put you on the spot if you're not prepared, but it would be nice maybe if you were my co-pilot on that one, to give maybe some kind of where we're at in our outreach on that. That would be good if you're prepared.
Sure, happy to do so.
Okay, well,
Thank
great.
you.
Christina, I'll
Back
hand
at
it to you.
3:10, everybody. Okay. See you at 3:10, guys. Okay, is everybody back now?
Yes.
Thanks, Victoria.
Yep.
Daniel?
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I just need to reconnect my mic.
Okay. All right. Oh, bring myself on. As soon as Daniel
Here
back
we go.
on, we'll go. Okay, got it. Take it with the housing inventory.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And it sounds like everyone can hear me okay. Lauren, are you on the call with us again?
Yes. Yep.
I hate to put you right on the spot, but I feel like kind of you've been more in the housing inventory count work. Do you want to maybe
Sure.
give a
Yes.
quick summary and status update?
Yes, definitely. So as folks know, the housing inventory count is, as Daniel mentioned, the partner report to the point in time count. Our work for the community administration team will be compiling the housing inventory information for the community and ultimately submitting the report. The stage that we're currently in right now is our initial data quality review, and just about to send out our agency workbooks at the end of this week. So the stage we're in now, our team is reviewing data quality errors that should be reviewed and or corrected by providers. We'll be informing those providers of the mistakes. We say a workbook. It's a spreadsheet of specific errors for their review, and we provide a good amount of education and resources within those workbooks so that providers know what these errors are and how to correct them. So we'll go through a few rounds of that data quality review and correction with providers. We will also have providers review their utilization rate. So based on how many units and beds their housing programs have, it's that rate based on how many enrollments were active on the night of the PIT. So I believe the January the 29th. So looking at total enrollments based on that program's capacity. And if programs have a utilization rate above 105%, that HUD considers that high utilization, and we would expect the provider to let us know why that is occurring. And then similarly, if it is below 65%, HUD considers that as a low utilization rate, and we would want the provider to let us know what's going on there. Is there a capacity change? Was it just simply, low utilization for other factors going on? So we're just at a place now where our team's been kind of compiling data quality information and that utilization information, and we're about to send out those workbooks the end of this week, and then we'll go through probably 2 or 3 rounds of that kind of review, correction, and ultimately, like with all of our federal reports, when our team has done those corrections and the report is in a place for final submission, we work closely with KCRHA and Daniel's team to submit through HDX to HUD.
Great, thank you, Lauren, for that overview. I want to share my screen, everybody, and I'm going to get this right here, just to give you a sense of what it is here. So again, nothing on its face that looks complicated. We have an agency. We have a project in HMIS. This is not a project in HMIS, but it would be like this. Where we have the project type, we get their funding source. So this report also helps us to inform what federal funding sources any of the programs have. Then we ask total beds, how many units, do they have any dedicated veteran beds, any dedicated youth beds, and any dedicated chronic homeless beds. Then we get a total there. And the lovely team at BitFocus has some rules and logic in here. So as agencies who don't participate in HMIS, this is just an overview. When they enter this in, we get totals and things like that to help them complete this. For those that are in HMIS, we just slurp that up straight from the system into a report. And then we get that occupancy rate there. So you're talking about they're working more with the HMIS data, and then I work with, again, those non-HMIS participating agencies to get this information. I think what I would like for this group to really take away from this are 2 points. One, as the HMIS lead designated to do this work, we're doing the work. We're executing on our plan. We have deadlines that we're working towards so that we have submission around April. The first couple of weeks of April is usually when we see that deadline from HUD. We're still waiting for that. But that's one takeaway is we're doing that. And we are on track to submit our federal reports for the PIT and PIC. The other takeaway is that when we do the PIT, that really is people. These are individuals, households, families, who are experiencing homelessness, and shelter is it's the one time a year where we ask here to look at what our inventory is. And for the homeless system, for the homeless response system, this is our largest asset, which is these beds and these units. This is what we have to bend the light for those who are experiencing homelessness. And what I will be providing for you all in April is what are those total counts of beds and units that we have for the different populations that some of you interact with, some of you serve directly, and then other populations that we know are experiencing homelessness as categories of HUD. Again, families, singles, children who are living on the streets, or in young adult shelters. And then you will take a look at that. So again, this is one of those classic analysis where we look at what is the need, how many people are experiencing homelessness of all types, and what do we have as intervention types? What are the beds? One asterisk here I want to make sure that everyone is aware of. We usually think of the point in time count only for our emergency shelters, transitional housing, safe havens, and people on the street. We actually do a count of people in every program in our system that includes our rapid rehousing and our permanent supportive. So we actually look at utilization for that snapshot as well. So this is we cast a wide net here in terms of the data that we collect with the HIC. Pause there for questions. Lauren, if you had anything else that came to mind.
That sounded good. Yeah, please let me know if there are any questions for our team as well.
So be on the lookout in April. You're going to have the amount of people experiencing homelessness, and then you're going to have the amount of beds that we have to try and support those folks who are needing housing and needing shelter, the whole continuum. The other report I want to give, Lauren, I might also lean on you a little bit for this. March 4th, we are due for our system performance measure report. This is that system level report that I talked earlier about. We honed in on measure 2, which is return to homelessness. But really, that is I guess, more than 7 reports in one. And we measure at a system level. So of all of our projects, what is the length of time persons remain homeless? That's measure 1. Measure 2 is how many of them return. We talked about before. Measure 3 is the number of persons experiencing homelessness count. We measure income growth. What did they have when they came in? Was it an earned income like a job? Was it a benefit like Social Security disability income? And then when they left the program, or within 1 year of being in the program, was there any growth in income? And then Measure 5 is who's first-time homeless. So these are people who show up in our system for the very first time. It's not a repeat. And then measure 6, although HUD has measure 6, we don't really focus on that. That's category 3 of homelessness, which you have to, there's some nuance there, but measure 6 is not one that we widely report on. But measure 7 is really important. That's the successful placement from folks in our programs to permanent housing. There are, in each one of those reports, a few of them have A and B sections. I won't go through all that. That isn't really this presentation to give you the education on all of this. Please attend the COC board meetings. That's where we do go into that. But the status on that is we're in the data quality review. I'll let Lauren maybe say a few words about where we're at with that, but our submission deadline is March 4th. Lauren, anything to add?
I think you've covered it, Daniel. I will be speaking with KCRHA Thursday and Friday for those final last steps for the SPM. Each year, we will resubmit for the previous year. So we'll be lifting up to KCRHA that resubmission of the 2024 data, which HUD does allow, and then a submission of the 2025 data. So just as Daniel mentioned, we are right on track to submit for SPMs for that March 4th deadline. So we'll be chatting about that with you, Daniel, this week and next week. And then right after that, we'll be doing HIC-PIT. So often these federal reports are certainly overlapping in their timelines, but we are on track for King County.
Reporting requirements. So I just want to share with you again that really is it's important for us to let you know that we are on track for that. Opening up for questions.
Hi, this is Ruby. I just have a question surrounding, I know there's been a lot of confusion with the NOFO being rescinded and re-implemented and stuff. And I know that falls under the COC program, but it sounds like we're not being impacted on that for our reporting. Like our reporting still is on the same schedule and everything.
Yeah, right now it seems to be, I guess you could say, back to normal. The SPM deadline is on track to where it was in previous years. The HIC-PIT, there was no notice from HUD to hold off. So we went forward with executing in January like we've done in the past. I think there is one, we're a little bit holding our breath to see when HUD requires us to submit the point in time count. Lauren, am I speaking out of turn here? Did we get an update on that?
No.
Okay, we still don't know. Okay, we still don't know when they would like us to submit. I think about this time, usually in the weeks following, we get a notice from HUD and they'll tell us the exact date of submission. But to reduce any anxieties there on that, we're acting as if it's due on the normal schedule, working towards that first week of April. Ruby, does that answer that? Was there something more like maybe between the lines there?
No, that answers that. Just, keeping tabs on the dates that we're submitting these and just making sure that that's not being affected. It sounds like it's not, or at least that we're just going with what we know. So thank you guys for doing the work.
Yeah, I will say, one difference, Ruby, that you kind of mentioned, like, are things the same? To remind this group, HUD is not requiring that we report on demographics for the point in time count this year. They removed that data field of gender, and this body recommended, and we still collected that information for the point in time count for this year. So for local reporting, which by statute as the COC governance board, world is the minimum, and we can collect above that, and other communities do that. It's common. So we will continue to report on demographics in its completeness as we have done in the past, despite HUD or despite the changes in the requirements this year from HUD, we're going to continue the course here next week.
Are we reporting that to HUD too, or are we keeping that kind of internally?
That's just for local reporting. That will not go to HUD.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification.
And my sense is when they finally open up the portal to enter the data, we just won't see those fields. They'll have removed them in alignment with their new requirements that they put forth in the 2020.
Yeah, I think it's good to keep those data points running. I know that we already made that decision, but I think it's good to keep those data points running so we can have some good narrative to be able to speak to when the question comes about best practices and what we should be doing. So thank you guys for doing that. And thanks to the group that approved it as well.
It's great. So I asked Christina if there was enough time to squeeze in a short recap of last year. And we added that to the agenda, and I think we have plenty of time. So I'm gonna pivot over, and I'm gonna share my screen, and I'm gonna go through a quick presentation with you all. Okay. How's that for everybody? A thumbs up or emoji?
I can see it.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to go through and highlight some accomplishments and some of the activities from 2025 so that everyone in this group can see what was accomplished and also where this governance body fit into some of that. I don't have a lot of narrative for you. I actually have a really large slide here to show you that's going to cover most of it. But I did want to just share the quick agenda here. I'm going to show our HMI system and governance highlights. I want to show a simple slide on some system growth so that you can see where we are from year to year, and then also open it up for any questions. So in 2025, you can kind of read it all here in these different sections. But going through what we accomplished, not just the committee, but just in general, KCRHA too. I wanted to highlight some of that work as well as the BitFocus team. In 2026, we implemented the HUD data standards. I want to thank the BitFocus team. They were really the doers in a lot of that work with the direction of this committee on data collection. So again, thank you for that. We are continuing to work with our CEDV configuration. This is the coordinated entry for DV. We are moving full speed ahead. We got a lot of ground covered in 2025, and now we're just confirming the prioritization assessment for that and hoping to, again, launch this in spring on that schedule. So we were able to work with the coalition and Hannah, thanks to the approval of this group and the COC, to advance forward the coordinated entry for that particular population. Continuing as we did in 2025, rollover, configuring shelters for our inventory, back to kind of what we were talking about with Dorsal, for that live inventory so that we can get snapshots of utilization. So we are working towards that. We have meetings set up with various shelters and continuing to do that with the April 1st deadline for shelters. We passed new HMIS policies. That's the continuation of the data collection standards, our navigation, coordinated entry navigation policy, and gosh, I didn't have the list. I should have wrote those out for you. I'll have to get those other two that we passed. And then we did our ES and rapid rehousing subtyping. So for those of you who have been doing this work for a while, HUD gives us these basic categories like emergency shelter. they define that a little bit more. They tell us there's a difference between continuous stay, where you enroll and you can be in the program for the duration that you need, and then there's night by night drop-in shelters. These are sort of our congregate that you think of. People show up, they get a bed, and they have to leave the next morning. What we were able to do on the data management team is get that subtyping done. So which rapid rehousing are with subsidy, with services only, and for
Seems like the audio's disrupted, or can people hear me, or is it my internet that's unstable?
No, I can hear you. I think it's Daniel.
Oh,
Just
okay.
Danielle. Yeah.
Daniel, can you hear us?
I think she's frozen.
Yeah, I think you're right.
He froze. Shall we?
Let's give it a minute,
Yeah.
maybe. He'll be back, right?
Yeah, it looks like he logged off, so he'll probably be back in just a second.
Yeah. In the meantime, anybody have any jokes?
How do you say yes in Spanish?
See?
Ox.
How did I know you were going to do that?
The first joke that came to mind.
We gotta bring some humor to the table, always.
Yeah, I'm no good at stand-up jokes. I sit down too much.
I will say kind of where Daniel left off, that services only piece. That's kind of like the big thing as a homeless veteran on the streets that I'm excitedly hoping for to eventually help get me housed, is that piece where services only, has the things that can help me find the places, like kind of like our old landlord liaison project, etc. we had, and really help with, being on, what I mean, on the streets, and, what would help with regarding that. And then I can read the slide on that Kelsey put together around that, and like it's going to be like housing navigation and stabilization services, and those services will include housing search assistant, tenant counseling, landlord engagement, application assistance, and move-in coordination. And Snohomish County has something similar to this already in place, where you can actually get a renter's certificate and you could show it. And there's landlords that take this, showing that you've received some training on how to be a good tenant and work, all that kind of stuff. And I took it and I got my certificate. So I'm excited about the services only piece coming into play. I hope I get housing before the, next year. But if not, I know it's really something that's bottleneck and holding me back. So, and I hear from a lot of people that can be a challenge that people just struggle with, especially disabled neuroatypical individuals like myself. And so, Yeah, I'm definitely excited for the services only piece coming on board. Is he back?
I am back, and thank you for
Okay.
keeping the space warm.
Okay, continue.
I'm back, but I do have a computer issue, so I'm not exactly sure what's happening here. But I'm gonna narrate just a little bit here. I wanted to just to point out something really important, and I'm sorry that I cut out on this, which is that for our units and our beds, we're collecting information about those in particular, which is, do they provide case management? Do they provide substance abuse treatment services? Are they ADA compliant? Are they what other amenities they might have? And that's going to get us closer, not just to a quantitative count, or this is a departure from just a quantitative count of how many beds and units we have, but really, what is the quality of those units? And as we see in the system performance measures, kind of tying it back to that, is we know that people are staying in shelters longer. And I think that's also an experience that providers can speak to as they're seeing on the ground as well, as it shows up in the data. So knowing the quality of that experience is going to help us to write stronger NOFOs, and also to know what kind of services we can expect from a provider when a person lands there. So just sharing that. Going back to the list here of things that were completed. Really, this is for the BitFocus team. Thank you so much. We had 1,300 people trained, over 24 trainings last year, 530 new users. We added 46 new programs. We had 18,000 new client profiles. We sent out 12 monthly newsletters. Again, BitFocus team, thank you so much. For this group, small wins are great. It was a tough year in 2025, I think, collectively for everybody. We had 100% quorum across our 11 meetings. I know our December meeting was a bit of a flub. We tried to do it during the holidays, but besides that one, we had 100% quorum. We did, good, bad, or indifferent. I want to thank this group. You did approve the HUD NOFO with a rapid response there. I know that was not easy for you, and I know that it stress tested, our values and how to move forward and advance forward while still bringing in resources for those experiencing homelessness. So thank you to this group for approving that, even though there was a direction change there. We did complete all federal, state, and local reporting. So despite all the bumpy roads and things that were coming at us, we continue to hold steady in making our deadlines for reporting. We did pass the HMIS work plan, so thank you for that. That was December, January. On data quality, I just want to say that the last time I checked on this, and this was towards the end of last quarter, so I know we're a little bit out in February, but we had a 95% profile completeness rate for those profiles in HMIS. For those that exited, we had a 93% completeness there as well. So thank you to providers for doing the assessments, doing the enrollments, and completing those. Our inventory data quality is at 70%. So for all of our programs in the HMIS, we have most of that unit inventory information. And then we had new dashboards that the BitFocus team put out for providers. So we provided that improved data quality monitoring for them, so they can go in and look at their inventory data quality, their people data quality, and know where that is on any given week, day or week, or month or quarter. And then we gave special data collection training to our partners doing the veteran by name list work, and really focusing them on current living situation. It's a really small thing, but it's a really important data field. It tells us where people are at in their homeless journey, and that helps us to maintain our by name list for case conferencing and getting people effectively housed. And we gave that training to our VA partners this year. I'll pause there before I go any further.
Can you repeat that? You gave them what kind of training, please? This is Christina.
Yeah, Christina, thank you. Pretty technical. There is a data point called a data field that is collected by case managers called current living situation. And when they first enter a program, we collect that data point to know, are they experiencing homelessness? Are they in a shelter? Where are they at in their journey? And then that can be updated at any point when they're enrolled or working with an outreach provider or case manager. And that's really important because that will tell us who's actively experiencing homelessness, who's inactive because we haven't heard from them in a long time, or they've gotten housed, are they in another program type. So the current living situation is just really important for that by name list calculation. And if you're feeling like you don't have the education on that, that's good for me to know, because that's something that we can get you spun up on committee here, committee members as a whole, to understanding by name lists work more in general. But that's it, Christina. Any questions on that?
I do have a follow-up question. This is Christina. In all the discussions, dorsal stuff and all that kind of stuff, I'm curious, do people fall off mainly because they don't check in, that kind of stuff? How is that kind of, because I often wonder, I have to be very aggressive in checking in and making sure I don't fall off. How is that done in the community to make sure that our the programs we work with don't lose people? I'm going to use the word lose because that's how I see it.
I don't think I'm in a position to answer that question right now in a really meaningful way. What I can share is the by name list logic is pretty complicated, but it's looking at the records of individuals in HMIS, looking at their program type they're enrolled in. Are they in a let's say a prevention or rapid rehousing program? So are they housed? And then have they exited and not returned? Are they exited to homelessness? All of those fields are taken into consideration to give them an active or inactive status. And also that's a process improvement. So as we learn different scenarios and combination of fields that signal an active or inactive, we are updating that. So yeah, I don't know if I'm able to say exactly why people leave the system and don't show up. I think that's not good. And the by name list is actually a best practice to try to keep track of those individuals so that the groups who do the case conferencing, which is the providers that huddle together, can keep can keep in contact so they know where these individuals are. So it's really literally a list of names that people are experiencing homelessness to try not to lose them.
Mm-hmm. And then I have one more question about the by name list. Maybe you or maybe it was Victoria, I think, but when you have the by name list and you have big groups at, big orgs and stuff, and then you have these little orgs, is everybody given that equal opportunity to access that? It's not something where like DESC fully staffs this full time and can jump on things quicker than someone who has a small org that maybe has one person doing this all week and they aren't quick as somebody. Does that make sense? Is there is there equal access with our by name list?
Are you talking specifically about who is doing that work?
Yeah, I just want to, because I know I've heard someone in this group, I can't remember who, I apologize, say that, they have a smaller org. And so I just want to, that by name list, is there equal, is everybody given the opportunity equally to access it versus what, do you see what I'm saying? I don't know, maybe Ruby.
Yeah.
Okay, you got,
I think I understand. You're saying, is that democratized? Is that by name list democratized for others to look at?
Yes, like if I have a small org and I only could look at the lists on Thursday, maybe, or Tuesday, Thursday, and you've got a DSC who someone is staring at that list 24/7 kind of thing, am I going to be able to get those same type slots and places that do come available as somebody, a smaller group versus do our smaller groups have equal access? I don't like the word access,
Yeah.
but can they get it? Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I can speak
Oh,
to that.
go ahead, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. I am, this is Shauna, and I am the one that has talked about being a small org. And no, we don't have equal access to it. I tried for several years to get on those calls and was always, it's always the same big orgs that are a part of it. And there is systems in place that theoretically would bring in people that attend my programs as long as they're an HMIS. But realistically, I have been there for 10 years, and in the last 6 or 7, I don't think anyone has received housing via the by name list or any of those systems. Everybody we've housed have been because my organization makes an MOU with another organization, and we are certified as referral partners. So it's sad. And the current system, how it is now, the number of units are posted every day. And like you said, some bigger organizations have someone sitting there staring at the screen. And if you refer someone, you can't just refer them once and leave them on the referral list. You have to refer them every day, and we just don't have capacity to do that.
I have a clarifying question. When we're speaking about this by name list, are we speaking about, is it a part of coordinated entry? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, there's
Ish?
this is Daniel. There's sort of two ways to think about the by name list, and kind of where we're at right now is the by name list as a inflow outflow analysis. So we know who's newly coming into the system, who was inactive, who's now becoming active, or who was active and no longer in the homeless system. So it's right now there's the analysis portion, which is that inflow outflow attrition. It goes by a couple different names, but inflow outflow is how you primarily hear it talked about. So that's one thing that we're measuring with it. The other one is the case conferencing piece. And I'm really not the best one to talk about where we are on that, which is how we have the list, we see the inflow, we see the outflow. Part 2, who is at the table to try to get housing for those individuals on the list. That's the case conferencing piece.
And that's more coordinated entry, correct?
Those,
I have or sorry, go ahead.
yeah, those can work together, but they're not one and the same.
And so my question is, maybe this is what I think maybe Christina was trying to zone in on, is like, are smaller orgs able to add to the by name list? Is that what we're talking about here?
If they're
Sorry, I just
HMRs
want to make sure I'm
participating, yeah,
understanding.
any program that's HMS participating, we are scanning all records and creating that inflow outflow.
I think though that there's a bigger question here around, sorry, I'm getting feedback. I think that there's a bigger question here around the overall effectiveness of the coordinated entry system for smaller agencies. And this is related to HMIS data capacity, knowing that that is a contributing factor to coordinated entry participation. And I'll also just say that I haven't seen coordinated entry data from the KCRHA in a very long time. And I'd be curious to know if there are any plans to update coordinated entry evaluations or post some of those metrics around like referral times and referral completion rates in the near future.
Yeah, thank you for that. I Victoria, I think astute observation there on, distinguishing between coordinated entry and by name list work, and in particular, who has access. I will say this group, we have the coordinated entry, the new coordinated entry onboarding policy, which is that even if you're not funded, but you're able to do navigation services, you can now be a coordinated entry assessor. So it doesn't have to be a KCRHA funded or even a direct homeless service provider. And that is a policy now. I think we've onboarded one new agency. I know I had a meeting earlier this week with another agency. So we are trying to make ways to increase access points for navigation for different organizations. I know that's not exactly what we're talking about, but I did want to highlight that we are making some headway there in that arena of trying to bring others on. But to homeless service providers that are smaller, I'll take notes and I can elevate that internally.
And also one thing to add, Daniel, sorry, hi, this is Ruby again. I've been in conversations with the youth space, and I know there's other conversations being had at other population levels about how the nomination process is going. And so I think that, you know, Shauna, I believe, was who was mentioning that, and also Victoria, if there's any like insight that y'all wanted to contribute to that space to try and help the nomination process go smoother. I think there will be a transition. You know, I don't want to speak too soon, but I think there's some pilot discussions going on about a new methodology, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but I think that is a conversation that's being had, and I just wanted to uplift that.
Yeah, Ruby, thank you for that addition. We do have an evaluation, actually, to just be really pointed, Victoria, we do have an evaluation on our work plan for coordinated entry every year. So that is being worked on. That's Janelle and Claire and Gwen on our team who are leading that effort right now. And then just a reminder that we do have a coordinated entry committee. So if there needs to be some work there and some representation there, you know, I think there's always the ability to make connective tissue with our coordinated entry subcommittee and the SPC subcommittee.
Some COCs have them combined into one committee, just in, you know, so that's an interesting thing to talk about, is how can we bridge the two?
True.
My hand's been up for a moment. May I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, Shauna.
Okay, thanks. I was gonna say what Ruby said is that I also sometimes frequent the single adult leadership, SALTI, whatever that stands for, and they are looking at better referral systems in terms of housing placement. And Daniel, I heard you say the by name list, and I immediately went to the old coordinated entry housing referral list. But I hear you saying now that is you're using by name as a different list. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't want to misspeak, Shauna. The by name list that we're holding and that we've coded up is the by name list for veterans, and we have an MOU and data sharing agreement on that piece with the Bolt group. And then we have our youth and young adult by name list, which is in current development.
Okay.
But in terms of the referral list that you had, it sounds similar, but I really couldn't say.
Well, it used to be before the current process. And this started during COVID, and then it continued for several years until I think maybe like a year ago. There was a by name list that they took the top so many people in coordinated entry, but then there was a weekly call and the case conference to decide who would get those units. And even though I had people on the list, I was never allowed on the call. And I knew people on the call, and they'd say, "Hey, isn't Daniel Ramos still at Hygiene Center?" I was like, "Yeah, he comes every day." "Oh, well, they just said he can't be found," and they crossed him off the list. And I was like, "Well, they didn't look in HMIS because he's at ICS every single day." So that is what I was referring to as the by name list, nothing to do with vets and youth. So you might want to find a different name for that, because a lot of people, at least in the single adult world, think of by name list as that case conferencing call. That's how I got a little bit confused. And
yeah,
jumped in, because the by name list for me is that very small group of people that get to make decisions, and so small agencies aren't included in that.
Yeah. What would this? I think we're getting close to time. I don't think we're gonna have time for the dashboard and the legislative update. So I think this is fine. This is a great conversation. What is a good next step? I'm looking for committee members. Christina, do we want to take this discussion to the COC board? Bring in Tom. Kind of bring in the right people in the space.
Maybe
what
we
would
can bring
be-
in Tom for a discussion at our next SPC meeting.
I just want to make sure we're staying, in our work streams, Tom and that coordinated entry committee may be working on all these things. I do want to be just cognizant of not stepping on toes and trying to take over any work that they may be on. I
think
put that out.
I think it's reasonable for us to know what by name list refers to in this context and how HMIS impacts the coordinated entry system. And specifically the nomination and process and eligibility process.
And
Okay, that's good stuff.
That's what Tom and the Salty team is looking at right now. I haven't been at a meeting since I got sick, so November I think was my last meeting, and it was just preliminary discussions, as Ruby said, about what is a better way to do referrals, because not everybody can sit at the computer all day long.
Great, I'm taking notes. And then as long as the co-chairs are in agreement, I think as we do the planning sessions, I'm sure there's agreement. We can invite Tom and I can get an agenda on answering the question on how HMIS is being used by name list or otherwise for nominations and referrals and matching. Correct me if I'm not capturing that just right.
You are.
Yeah, I think that sounds really helpful for me at least, as well, to understand how those two are, I'm not on the coordinated entry committee and I should really start attending those more often. I've only been to a couple. So thanks for this conversation today.
And I have a quick legislative update I could really use your all help on. House Bill, which is now ES, because it's crossed over, ES House Bill 2266, around encouraging permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, and indoor emergency housing, has passed the House and is going to be in the Senate at the Senate Committee on Housing, 10:30 on the 20th. So on Friday at 10:30, would love to see people sign in and support, call in testimony, etc. But this is an important bill that's going to be looking at cities that like to say we don't want to see things like transitional housing and permanent supportive housing and shelters in our neck of the woods, and really give them some guidance on that. And it has, Macri's on it, Sean Scott's on this bill. Several lawmakers have really signed into it. It's HB 2266. And again, if y'all can sign in for, pro support of it on February 20th at 10:30. I think this will give, help us in King County with some of our cities that tend to not want to see our unhoused neighbors on their grass, etc. So I wanted to put that plug out there because it's in 2 days and we're just asking everybody in the community to call in on it. And now it is 4 o'clock. I hope everybody has a great rest of their day, and we will see you on March 18th.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you for showing up.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thanks.
Check on your loved ones. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.